The average car on Australian roads is now 11.4 years old. That is a statement about how people are making decisions. More than 20 million registered vehicles in Australia, and the average age of that fleet has been climbing every single year. The used market has become expensive. New cars have followed. And somewhere along the way, a significant portion of Australian drivers figured out what mechanics have known for years. Buy the right car once, and it barely asks anything of you again. This video is about those cars. The 5 cars on this list share one defining characteristic. Mechanics who work on Australian vehicles every single day, on cars that are out of warranty and owned by real people with real budgets, consistently describe these specific models as Theons that almost never appear on their ramp for anything other than a scheduled service. That is the metric that matters. Press launches and 90-day quality surveys tell you what a manufacturer wants you to believe. What happens to this car at 150,000 kilometers when no manufacturer is paying for the repair? That is the question this list answers. And the answers are genuinely good news. Before we get into the cars, subscribe to the channel if you find this useful. It is how we keep making research like this. Why does the buy once philosophy matter more in Australia in 2026 than at any point in the last 2 decades? The average Australian driver who replaces a car every 3 to 4 years, through balloon payment finance, through depreciation pressure, through the constant churn of the new car market, is making what feels like a financially neutral decision. In reality, it is one of the most expensive habits in modern life. A car that loses 30% of its value in year 1 and costs $450 a month in finance payments, servicing charges, and unexpected repair bills is a very different financial instrument to a car that costs $28,000, holds its value, runs on 4.5 liters per 100 kilometers, and requires nothing more than a service every 12 months for the next 10 years. The total cost of ownership is the number that matters. The monthly payment is the cost of the finance agreement. Those are 2 different things, and conflating them is the single most expensive mistake Australian car buyers make. Real-world Australian warranty and claims data consistently finds that the gap between the most reliable and least reliable cars in any given segment is significant. We are talking about the difference between owning a car that costs $400 a year in unplanned repairs and owning one that costs $1,500 to $2,000. Over a decade, that gap is the difference between a car that costs what it says on the sticker and one that bills you silently, repeatedly, and unpredictably for the entire time you own it. The 5 cars on this list are the ones where that second outcome almost never happens. Number 5. Toyota Corolla Hybrid. $245 per capped service, 5-star ANCAP. A 5-year unlimited kilometer warranty that extends to 7 years on the drivetrain when the car is serviced within the Toyota network. Those are the headline numbers. The ownership experience behind them is what makes Australian mechanics consistently reluctant to see these vehicles arrive on their ramp. To understand why, you need to understand what Toyota's hybrid system actually is at an engineering level, because the reliability record is purely an engineering consequence. The 1.8-liter Atkinson cycle petrol engine uses low-friction internal components and an electric water pump, which eliminates the belt-driven system that causes wear and failure in conventional engines. The electric motor handles the majority of low-speed driving. The school run, the stop-start commute through Sydney or Melbourne traffic, the supermarket car park. This means the petrol engine runs for a significantly smaller proportion of total mileage than it would in a conventional car. Fewer combustion cycles means less wear, and less wear means the engine outlasts almost everything competing for the same Australian buyer. It is engineering logic, refined across more than 25 years since the first Prius. In Australia, the Corolla Hybrid achieved 4.0 liters per 100 kilometers on the combined cycle for the hatchback and 3.9 for the sedan. At 15,000 kilometer service intervals and $245 per visit, this is among the cheapest cars to own in its class. Mechanics describe it the same way everywhere, reliable enough that when one does appear in the workshop for something unplanned, it is notable. The genuine caveat is that the Corolla Hybrid fails to excite. It does what it is supposed to do, quietly, efficiently, and without drama. If you are buying a car to feel something, look elsewhere. If you are buying a car to own for 10 years and spend as little time thinking about it as possible, this is the closest thing to a guaranteed outcome the Australian car market offers. Number 4. Honda Jazz. Ask a mechanic which car they would buy for a family member who knows nothing about engines and simply needs something that will produce zero problems. The answer comes back consistently across workshops in Brisbane, Perth, and regional Victoria. This one. The reason is structural, and it starts with the powertrain. The Jazz EE-HAV hybrid system uses a twin motor configuration where the petrol engine functions primarily as a generator rather than a direct drive unit. At low and medium speeds, the wheels are driven almost entirely by the electric motor, while the petrol engine charges the battery. On faster roads and highway runs, the petrol engine engages directly. This means the petrol engine operates under dramatically less mechanical stress than a conventional engine across atypical Australian driving week, dominated by city and suburban traffic. The transmission is an electric unit rather than a conventional gearbox, which means no clutch to replace, no gearbox oil to contaminate, and far fewer components capable of failure than in almost any other car at this price point. Real-world Australian ownership reports describe zero mechanical intervention across the first 30,000 kilometres in mixed driving, with fuel consumption averaging around 4.4 litres per 100 kilometres, which changes the annual fuel budget meaningfully for a high-mileage urban driver. Honda Australia backs the Jazz with a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. Servicing costs cite among the lowest in the small car segment. The resale values hold well, meaning the total cost of ownership over a decade competes with vehicles that cost significantly less to purchase in the first place. The genuine weaknesses are the boot, which is marginally smaller than some rivals, and the entry price of around $32,000 before on-road costs, which positions it above the budget end of the small car market. Neither affects its reliability record. They are worth knowing. They are reasons to choose a different car, but they leave the reliability record entirely intact, and walking away from one of the most dependable vehicles in Australia on those grounds alone would be a financial mistake. Number 3. Mazda 3. Ask fleet managers which non-hybrid car they run past 150,000 kilometers with the least drama. The answer has been consistent across Australia for over a decade. Australian owner surveys put it at the top of the non-hybrid reliability rankings in its class, and independent studies across multiple years back that result without exception. That pattern has been sustained long enough to mean something. Mazda's Skyactiv G engine technology strips out the complexity that causes failure in competing powertrains. Where turbochargers are the single most common source of expensive mechanical failure on modern cars, because the bearings wear, the seals fail, and the intercooler pipes crack. The Mazda 3 uses a naturally aspirated engine on the most popular variants, one that breathes freely and operates well within its designed limits at virtually all times. Independent mechanics across Australia consistently name the Mazda 3 when asked for a reliable family car on a realistic budget. The same vague architecture rivals that compete on specification sheets tend to generate higher workshop visit rates at high kilometers. The Mazda 3 keeps that rate low because the failure points were engineered out before a single car was built. Resale values are strong, particularly for the G20 Touring and G25 Estina variants. Annual servicing costs sit between $400 and $600, depending on the service type and location, which is competitive within its segment. A 5-star ANCAP rating across the current generation keeps insurance premiums in a sensible range for most Australian buyers. The interior falls short of the flashiest in its class. The screen has attracted criticism for its size relative to newer rivals. What the Mazda 3 is doing is covering hundreds of thousands of kilometers across Australian roads with one of the lowest unplanned intervention rates of any car in the segment. One mechanic consulted during the research for this video has owned a Mazda 3 for 6 years. In that time, it has visited a workshop 3 times, all for scheduled services. That is the entire relationship. If this research is helping you make a smarter decision, joining the channel is how you help us keep producing it. The next entry is the most financially underestimated car on this list. Number 2. Suzuki Swift. 5 consecutive years in the top 5 for small car reliability in Australia. A dealer network rated among the most efficient in the country for resolving the rare issues that do arise. The fourth-generation model, launched locally in 2024, is engineered to be simpler and more durable than the car it replaced. That is an unusual commitment from a manufacturer at this price point, and the ownership data reflects it. This reliability record has a clear engineering basis. The new Swift uses a 1.2-liter naturally aspirated three-cylinder engine with a mild hybrid system, and that powertrain goes without a turbocharger. That single design decision separates the Swift from one of the most documented sources of expensive failure on modern cars at high kilometers. The engine breathes naturally, the drivetrain operates well within its limits at virtually all times, and components that are never stressed fail prematurely at a rate approaching zero. Suzuki Australia caps servicing at 5 years or 100,000 kilometers, whichever comes first. Non-turbo models service every 12 months or 15,000 kilometers, a generous interval for a light car covering typical suburban distances. Parts are inexpensive and widely available. Any competent independent mechanic can work on a Swift without specialist diagnostic equipment, which matters when you are comparing total cost of ownership rather than just capped price periods. The 5-year, 100,000-kilometer warranty extends to 7 years on the drivetrain for owners who service within the Suzuki dealer network, providing coverage that very few manufacturers at this price point will match. The genuine caveat is the interior, which feels less premium than rivals from Hyundai or Mazda. The Swift is built to run for a decade without interruption. On that specific brief, it succeeds better than almost any other car at its price point in Australia. Number 1. Lexus NX. Every year, the same brand sits at the top of Australian reliability surveys by a margin that the competition struggles to close. Lexus achieves the highest reliability scores of any manufacturer measured in Australia, well above the market average. The NX is the model that anchors that record in the midsize SUV segment, and it has held that position consistently enough that their salt has stopped being a surprise and started being a reference point. We want to acknowledge immediately that the Lexus NX costs more than everything else on this list. New, the NX 250 starts around $65,000 before on-road costs. Used examples from 3 to 4 years ago can be found from around $45,000 to $55,000 depending on specification. That is a meaningful sum of money. What the data says is this. When you account for total cost of ownership across 7 to 10 years, including service costs, repair costs, fuel costs, depreciation, and the probability of any unexpected bill in any given year, the Lexus NX competes with and frequently beats cars that cost significantly less to purchase. The reason is the same engineering foundation that anchors the Toyota Corolla hybrid. The Lexus NX uses Toyota's proven hybrid drivetrain, refined and applied to a premium mid-size SUV format. The NX 358 shares its fundamental hybrid architecture with the RAV4 hybrid, a powertrain with a real-world track record of sustained high-kilometer reliability that no European rival in the segment approaches. In Australia, the Lexus NX has consistently outsold the BMW X3, Audi Q5, and Mercedes-Benz GLC. That market outcome reflects a purchasing decision being made repeatedly by buyers who've done the cost calculation. Lexus dealers in Australia are rated among the highest in the country for customer service and warranty resolution. When a fault does occur, and occasionally it will because no machine is perfect, Lexus fixes it, typically at no cost to the owner within the warranty period. The financial case over a decade is clear: lower repair frequency, lower insurance premiums reflecting lower claim rates, and resale values that hold better than any European competitor in the segment mean the total cost of ownership calculation regularly favors the Lexus despite the higher purchase price. If your primary criterion is the near elimination of mechanical anxiety from your ownership experience, the Lexus NX is the answer the Australian data points to. Here is the rule that applies to every car on this list, and the reason these 5 consistently outperform everything around them. Reliability is an engineering philosophy before it is a quality control outcome. The cars that avoid the workshop are the ones whose engineers started with the question, what is most likely to fail and how do we design it out? Toyota removed the belt-driven water pump. Honda made the electric motor the primary drive unit at low speeds, which took stress off the petrol engine on every suburban commute. Mazda refused to fit a turbocharger on the Core variant, eliminating the single most common source of high-kilometer failure in its class. Suzuki specified the car simply enough that failure points were designed out before production began. Lexus applied Toyota's proven drivetrain to a premium package and built a dealer network that resolves issues fast when they do appear. These are deliberate decisions made before a single car reaches a showroom. When you buy one of these cars, you are benefiting from engineering decisions made by people who prioritized your ownership experience over a specification sheet. Before you buy any car, ask one question: what does this car's engine require to fail? If the answer is a long list, turbocharger seals, dual clutch transmission fluid, timing belt at 100,000 kilometers, air suspension compressors, you are looking at a car that requires something to go wrong before it reaches 200,000 kilometers. If the answer is almost nothing, you are looking at a car like the ones on this list. The monthly payment is the cost of the finance agreement. What it costs you across 10 years of ownership is the cost of the car. Nobody puts that number on the window sticker. If this research helped you identify a car that will actually last, joining the channel is the best way to help us keep making it. Drop in the comments which of these 5 you would choose and where in Australia you are watching from.